I think we're live.
Well, I just finished cleaning your book, Brian. It's what I do every single day. Works great with the Truman's products.
And you could probably even drink it with the lemonade.
That's right.
So I believe, I believe we should be live. I'm just double checking. I'm just checking my Facebook profile. I just want to make sure we're there. It says we're live. It says we're live here. 26 second in. I just don't see it on Facebook yet. But let's assume we're live anyway.
Assume we're live. I love it.
So John, I am so glad you're here for a lot of reasons. You know, I've been a big fan of what you've been doing for so long now. You know, we got introduced by our mutual friend Dan Herman, and he introduced us back when you were at Big Ass Fans. And for those who don't know the company, right? You guys started off as a real traditional B2B, hard to call it traditional, but in a B2B marketplace essentially. But took a slightly different approach to selling B2B. Of course, with a name like Big Ass Fans, you'd sort of expect that.
Right.
And now you just recently launched Truman's. Of course, you know, here I am wearing the T-shirt. Thank you so much. We have a couple of things we're going to do today. One, we're going to show everybody the box that came, that starter kit, and we're going to prep one live just so people can see what that's like. But before I do that, there's a commonality that you have between the two of them, and you know, even though they're very obviously different businesses, the B2B, and I know you started taking Big Ass Fans to consumer. Share with people what the commonality is between the brands and why you're so excited about what you're doing at Truman's.
Yeah, you know, I think that's a phenomenal question. And, you know, I made the joke about your book, Be Like Amazon, but the reality is I think the reason why we get along is because I agree with the way you think and principles in it. You know, when you look at Big Ass Fans, what most people think of is a really fun, approachable, dynamic brand. They don't think of a sleepy industrial fan company, which in reality is what it is, with a really sexy brand on top of it. But let me talk about the business model, which makes it so special. Yeah. Big Ass Fans sold direct. At a time when direct wasn't in vogue, wasn't cool, Big Ass Fans was connecting with real customers like American Airlines or GE, on a global scale, and selling fans directly to them. So talk about the ability to get to know what your customer wants, to build relationships that last, to allow for customers to continually buy from the company is a true extraordinary element of Big Ass Fans. And then when you wrap that brand around it and you fall in love with it and you become a fan of the company, no pun intended,
yep.
The magic of it works. So you take a category that is boring. Fans, ceiling fans. I mean, look at on the industrial side, no one can name one other competitor. On the residential side, it's
maybe one.
The residential side is all commoditized, coming in from Asia, sold at $99 at a big box retailer. And so the strategy was on the business to business side, how do you develop those long-term relationships with the biggest and best customers in the world, deliver a product that people are going to fall in love with. And by the way, the design is completely iconic, fits in with the Big Ass mantra, and then take that, translate it to consumers with Haiku. And Haiku was the brand that was launched for consumers. And actually, my co-founder of Trumans.com is the guy who built Haiku and took it from 0 to 60 million in 3 years. And that was direct to consumer. And Brian, here's what's amazing about that. In a category of ceiling fans sold for $99 at big box retail, Alex and his genius took $1,000 price point, ultra high end premium, and took it directly to the market. So, you know, I think when you think about that, what you see are characteristics of building long term relationships with people, with individuals, and with customers.
And that's pillar one of Be Like Amazon, right? It's that customer centricity.
That's exactly right. And you know, this, by the way, is not a plug for your book. It's a plug for how business should work, right? And so, you know, number one, we have the idea of developing relationships with customers, and we've translated that to Truman's. And I think if you look at the way that we built the business on transparency, approachability, developing one-to-one relationships with people, with real human beings, I credit you for introducing me to someone in Lexington, Kentucky, who has become a great friend and a huge fan of the company. And so I think for a direct-to-consumer business that often is a shadowy .com figure, right, this kind of big being up in the clouds, we're actually bringing it to the ground level and developing fans. And so that's one part, is the approachability, creating a brand that people will love. Frankly, we think home cleaning is a lot like the fan category. When you walk into a big box retailer, you see the same thing on the shelf. And people have become accustomed to the same thing over and over again, a ready-to-use product with a new color or a new scent, and that is innovation. And frankly, we think that the category is completely cluttered. We think it's a mess, which is ironic, right? That big cleaning has created such a mess. And so we're taking those principles, that are I think what makes a business strong. We're taking the principles of Big Ask, which is you create a brand that people can fall in love with. We're mashing that together in a very unique form and introducing it to customers. So, we're super excited about it. And one thing that I would say, Brian, that speaks to kind of this idea that you're talking about of relationship building. 7 or 8 months ago, we announced what we were doing with Truman's, and I think that's what when you first said, "Oh my gosh, you're doing something new. This is really cool," and we were transparent the whole time. Because we said, if you're going to really build an authentic relationship with someone, you have to be honest about what you're doing. You can't all of a sudden one day say, here's Truman's, go buy it.
Right.
And so we took people on this journey with us as we created the company.
Well, that's so true. I mean, I loved watching, and I'm a fan of yours to begin with. Saw a little bit of what you were doing. But
as by the way, that I'm with your book.
But you gave us that behind the scenes insider to the product development, to how you're working on the bottles, and we'll show that in a minute, to sending out some early samples to people, to when you went to the manufacturing process. The only thing I hadn't seen beforehand was the box that actually came in, and of course that brought us closer to the brand, right? And also having some of the humor in there and all those things, really, really, really helped a ton. So we're now on second pillar, right? Actually, just coinciding, right? The innovation, right? And so let's show Truman's for a little bit, and then we can talk about how you guys came up with this innovation for the cleaning industry. Because, like you said, everybody, I have one of your bottles already just filled with water, right? I just want to kind of show people, right? Right. And because we're gonna put the cleaner in here. It comes empty, so let me get the box up here. And try not to spill this all over my computer while we're doing this.
Well, and Brian, and I can provide some color as you're kind of working through the box and showing it. Part of our thesis is around simplicity of supply chain. And Brian is absolutely right. When you look at that box, what you see are 4 empty bottles that get delivered to your home.
Very lightweight, by the way, which was also, I know, very important to you guys. And I'm going to pop out the glass cleaner. We're going to play with that one. Okay, there we go. Go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, no. So when you talk about innovation, and I think that within innovation there are different levels and different reasons why one should innovate. For us, where we saw a huge opportunity was to be so customer centric that we allowed for innovation around supply chain. Why does supply chain matter? Because you get a higher quality product faster to your home for a better price. And so when you think, go ahead.
But I'll also add one more to that one, right? Because I think this is probably one of those things that people don't necessarily know about me in public, like some of the people who know me well, right? I'm that Brooklyn-born, Texan now who is a plant-based eater who has solar on the roof and actually also, just cares about the environment in general. And so it's not only the supply chain side of it, but the fact that, you're shipping these to me from now on. Like, you don't have to ship anything else. And, reducing that plastic. And I told you a few weeks ago, my son, in his 8th grade class, they're in a great school where they actually try to bring things in teach things in a more project-based and more in a way that really syncs with people. And so in chemistry class, they actually took all the kids to a courtroom, and I got to be part of the jury, and we put single-use plastics and plastics in general on trial. And of course, the largest ones are Procter & Gamble and Clorox. These are the big guys in this space. and they're doing a number of things. So number one, tons of bottles, tons of single-use plastic, and shipping basically shipping a lot of water. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, a little bit of cleaner already in there, but basically Brian, a lot of water.
Brian, think of it this way, right? The industry, I mentioned the mess that big cleaning has made. Over 100 billion pounds of water shipped every year, right? And if we break that down, here's what it means. Think about just this one simple fact, and then let's build it out. Just to move ready-to-use bottles. So when we think about 100 billion pounds of water, 31 huge trucks that scare you on every highway in America, 31 big trucks equal one truck of concentrate. So that's number one. Now think about the manufacturing site that you would need to manufacture all those ready-to-use bottles and facilitate 100 billion pounds of water flowing through. Then think about the warehouses, the distribution centers, all of the retail shelves. The customer pays the burden in two ways, right, Brian?
They've got to pay for shipping.
They pay the burden in cost, but they pay the burden in environmental pressure.
Oh, of course.
CO2, and by the way, I'm so glad you mentioned that you believe in things that are pro supply chain and pro environmental cause and non-toxic cleaning supplies. We do too, but what's so important about this mission that we're on is being so customer centric that people fall in love with the brand and the concept because it's convenient and it works first, and then we want the market to adopt.
Totally. If you don't remove the friction, they don't buy. Right. That's why there are other brands out there that sell all natural cleaners, but they're doing the same thing. So, and by the way, those I still get on Subscribe and Save.
Right.
Because it's easier for me than worrying about it. Let's actually do this live. Everybody can kind of see how this works. Let's see. We're going to open that up.
And by the way, I hope there are a bunch of kids watching because my 8-year-old and 3-year-old love this right here. They try to get me to make too many cleaning supplies every single day.
So, well, you just have to give them out to like schools and let's see. I'm not having at this angle. It's just a little tough to get this.
I think we may need to hire you as a hand model. This is not an easy task to hold it up like that.
There we go. And now we could see the concentrate is coming through. Everybody see that? It's kind of cool. Now this is the glass cleaner, and the other thing I love is that each of the bottles actually doesn't say what it is. It's just very easy to tell, obviously, from the cartridge itself. And now you ship these cartridges. How frequently should this last?
So that on average, 45 days.
45 days. Right?
If you're in my house, it's like 10 days, but on average, 45 days.
Well, you're training them to be great cleaners, which is so good. But at the end of the day, this is only as good as if it actually works as well as that standard blue cleaner that everybody's familiar with.
Yeah, look, and that was important to us. We know that efficacy, how great and you're putting it to the test.
We're gonna put it to the test.
I love it.
This is my son's size 14. Yeah, he's 13 years old. He wears size 14 cleats, his New Balance cleats. And it was a very, very muddy weekend. And so we are going to take this cleat. I'm going to put it real close so you can see how much mud is on there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to spray it on the rag.
Brian, you're kind of giving me an idea to start doing live shots with folks and ask them to clean something that was completely unexpected. This is hilarious. I love it.
Well, the funny thing is, I've done this on my son's bat. I like to keep his bat kind of clean too. But this was like truly gross, right? And so let's just start getting it on there.
This is awesome.
And I'm not even going to do a lot of elbow grease here, but obviously because it really kicks in.
Brian, I feel like you're about to say, but wait, there's more.
We could do that, but hold on a second. Just this front. I'm gonna leave this little front panel. And I got it there. This little front panel is still kind of dirty, but let's check out the rest of this now. And if you look at it's starting to get white. And I know like the kitchen one probably has a degreaser as well. That would probably even do better on this. But this is not going to look completely all muddy and gross going forward. So I'm going to finish this up.
I love it.
But I think that, you've done a great job. It's a great product. We've been, you had sent us an early sample of the glass cleaner before, and we've been using it in the house. Love that it doesn't smell, so no ammonia in there. You know, like you, my son who's about to be 10 just loves cleaning the kitchen table. We have a big glass table. He loves cleaning it all the time with it. So that is an important part to doing this. The other part to this, to make sure this company works, and this is, I know, something that you did at Big Ass Fans, you paid a lot of attention to the data. You paid a lot of attention to how customers were using the fan, what their needs were, understanding that, and then putting that into new innovations and being able to act on it pretty quickly. So what are your plans now? You launched, what is it, about 3 weeks ago now?
So we launched on the 26th of February, officially.
Yeah, so we're about 3 weeks in now.
Yeah, well, here's some points of validation, right? So I mentioned to you that we built a fan base over time, and that was important, and we agree that's kind of the first pillar. And then innovation kind of brings people in and keeps them there. You know, I think when we look at validation points over the life cycle of this company, and we are brand new, in the first 7 days, we had visitors from 120 different countries to the site. We average anywhere from 30 to 40 countries to our site every single day. 30% of our traffic right now is international. And frankly, what that's done is it's allowed us to connect with people in very unique ways. And so, number one, Brian, I think, you know, we are really into analytics, but it's using that in an authentic way and understanding what is relevant to people and what matters to people. You know, for the cleaning products, if you look at the core, the reason why we chose 4 is when we looked at the home, we said this is all you need. You know, there are products out there that charge you 3 or 4 times what our charge just for stainless steel cleaner.
Yeah, let's talk about the 4. So we showed the glass. We've got the floor cleaner here. That's Brian, the shower and the kitchen.
More shower to you.
Yep.
So more shower to you. The green is everything in the kitchen sink, and the yellow is Floors Truly. So each product has its own personality and its own brand. And what we felt so strongly about is, you know, you walk down the aisle, and the first thing that hits you in big box retail is, number one, why are they shipping water? This is so wasteful. Number two, why are there so many
I want to pause you there, right? Because they've been shipping water for how many years, and no one stopped to ask that.
That's right. It's fair. And because of the asset heavy infrastructure, they need to keep doing that. And so they want people to say that concentrates don't work. But the reality is they work better. And when you look at a category growing 50% a year, e-commerce, household cleaner, there really is only one way to fulfill that need for the customer, and that's to actually shrink the packaging, make it more affordable. But to get back to the questions that you ask in the aisle, number one, why are you shipping water? Number two, why is there a specialty cleaner for every surface in the home? It makes no sense. Why am I paying $9 for a stainless steel cleaner or $10 for a cooktop cleaner? What we offer is $3.75 per cleaner that works on 99.9% of surfaces in your home. You need 4 cleaners for your house, that's it. And so it's that simplicity, it's the non-toxic belief that we think will ultimately allow people to fall in love with cleaning again, because you're not breathing in fumes, you're not feeling run down after cleaning because of the terrible health patterns associated with toxic cleaners. You know, so for us, here's how we think about long term. Number one, we want to prove the concept of concentrates. We want to make that the standard. Mm-hmm. And we want to plant a flag in the ground and say there's a better way of doing it, and we're going to lead the charge, and hopefully people come with us on that charge. That's the first. The other thing is we're going to look for things that customers want. You know, what we've heard so far is that there's
I'll tell you what I want. I want a dish soap and a hand cleaner. Those are the other 2 cleaners that are common in my house.
Yeah, look, I think dish and laundry are a category. I think laundry has done a little bit. Laundry has done a little bit of a better job shrinking packaging, and we give Method a lot of credit for some of the work that they've done. Yep. They've had a really tough time. Procter and Gamble, if you walk into a Target, has really kind of made the sea of orange. Filled with big jugs. It's like the Chevy Tahoe of the big box retail aisle. So So when we think about it, we agree that dish is an interesting category. We've also heard that disinfectant is something that people want. Now that's a little bit tough because disinfectant for us means that we get out of that non-toxic core.
Correct.
So we've got to decide how we want to introduce that to customers. I think, Brian, we also see an opportunity for pet care. We have a lot of pet lovers who have contacted us specifically asking, by the way, if we're pet friendly, and here's what we guarantee: we never test on pets. Mm-hmm. We only test on our co-founder Alex, and we spray him all the time, and he hasn't kind of fallen down thus far.
And your kids, let's not forget the kids.
My opinion is, I think pet is an opportunity. I also think automotive is an opportunity.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when you look at some of the cleaners that exist in the marketplace, there's been zero innovation within automotive. And frankly, that's a point that when you're overpaying for cleaning supplies, whether it be a leather cleaner, whether it be a tire shine, mm-hmm. or even just a traditional window cleaner for a car, you shouldn't be. A cleaner is a cleaner. And so any category where we see waste, where we see big brands shipping tons of water, where we see big brands overcharging, confusing people with narratives that don't really make sense, we think we can introduce something in a very authentic, approachable, and fun way. I think it's indicated by the brand names.
Yep.
Big cleaning, call it shower cleaner that kills germs.
But also like in the little details. Like one of my favorite parts of the box is it says right here, "Put me in, coach. I'm ready to spray." And you're constantly using humor all over the place. And I know obviously. And I want to dive into this deeper. I know you also have a baseball background, which for anyone who's gone into as far as you has been in college sports, falls in love with the process of growing and developing, and that's what every good business needs to do. And I think one of the things that I say the rise of Amazon is parallel to what's going on in baseball today as well. Right, organizations are struggling with how do I implement data because I have so much of it today. And use that to develop athletes. And what happened to the old world, great creative and feel? But how do you marry all of these? And I think, like I said, just watching what you have done in these last couple of companies, and knowing your background as a baseball player, how do you think that that upbringing in that baseball world, and especially through the collegiate level, has helped shape the way you view the world today?
A couple reasons. The first is, and I sent this message to you beforehand. It's redemption. I was a pitcher, and you're supposed to throw clean innings, and I can tell you, I threw more messy innings than you would ever imagine. This is clean redemption on innings. But, I think, number one, when you think about baseball, especially being a pitcher, there is a leadership aspect that translates into everyday work. And that's just the most simple form of business there is, the ability to get your team to rally around you and stay cool under pressure. My lens is obviously being a pitcher. I don't know what it's like to stand out at second base, but I can tell you, you give up a big home run, you have to show your team that you have what it takes to recover from that. And so I feel like being a pitcher really did prepare me for really tough moments, standing in front of a group, trying to rally the team around a cause. So one aspect is leadership, but Brian, you bring up analytics, and now I coach my son's 8-year-old coach pitch team, and I've got a great coach who's the head coach, and I'm the assistant coach, and
that's the best role, by the way.
It is
way better than being a head coach.
We're using analytics at that level, and so I think back to when I played college ball, and obviously I'm going to date myself, but analytics wasn't a part of the game, and so
radar gun, that was about it.
That's right, and so you went out as a pitcher, and you threw as hard as you could, and so when I think about my ability to win and my ability to differentiate, we kind of went off what you thought was right. And so I think what I've also been able to apply is that contrast of living in a world without data, living in a world, having a batter come up and having no intel. relying on the catcher to look up at the stance and try to determine is an outside pitch better than an inside pitch, trying to kind of remember and reconcile handwritten notes on what they did last time and how they reacted to pitchers or pitches. Mm-hmm. So, for me, I feel like I've got this really unique ability to look back at where baseball has gone and then say, okay, well, here's why we could have done a lot better. If we actually had the information, we would have been much more prepared every single at-bat, every single pitch. And so then how do you take that learning, that gap that existed, and apply it to the business that exists today? And that's what we're doing. Alex, my co-founder, and I, we consider ourselves to be extraordinarily analytical and extraordinarily data focused and data driven. And I think that's surprising because if you read our copy on our website, we probably come across as like Dumb and Dumber or, like Peter Farrelly movie in the form of a company.
Let's share that website with people so they can go there and check it out themselves.
Would love it.
Right. I'm going to try to figure out how I can pop it in here.
Yeah, it's at Trumans.com. So TRUMANS.com. Trumans.com.
Yeah, I'm going to try to figure out if there we go. I think I got it. There we go. So here's the page, right? And you can see get clean for a low price or stay dirty for free.
It is free.
My favorite. I'm just going to scroll down. Is these? Hold on, where are they? You have these testimonials on there. Is it in the about?
Yeah, if you go to Starter Kit, what you'll see are really great, rich content. We've got some actually, and some of the funniest testimonials have been written by just normal people, fans of the company, trying to kind of relay that brand persona in. Our product pages are hilarious. If you take time to actually look at each individual product, they have a profile and a unique personality.
Yeah, I mean, you had some dummy testimonials up there too that were just hilarious. But everything in the kitchen sink. There's no use crying over spilled milk unless you were thirsty, then cry, right? And it's just that kind of combination that we can be all creative, but we can also use analytics extremely well. And I think what we're seeing in baseball and we're seeing in business today is. And this is, obviously, you read Be Like Amazon is, Amazon is thought of as a highly data-driven company, but at the end of the day, it is their narratives, it's their storytelling internally, right, through those memos that we call buyer legends, right, that really drive the company, that really drive their execution. And it's okay to have a sense of humor, it's okay to tell stories, it's okay to also be data-driven. They don't have to exist from one spectrum to the other. You can actually use both, and that's not an issue. And I think people miss that, unfortunately.
Yeah, Brian, it is front and center for us. It's the first thing we do every single day is go through the analytics. Our day starts super early, and we review it, and we review it day by day, hour by hour. And not only that, but, we firmly believe, like you, that it's the translation of those analytics ultimately to the customer that matters. Because here's what we know. If we see something that's not right, it's because a customer is going through some experience that isn't favorable, right? So if you see web traffic is down, it's not because of some whimsical reason. It's because there's something about the experience for the customer that isn't attracting them to what is in front of them. And so we're constantly monitoring every bit of our website and refining as we go. And what we weren't afraid of, Brian, and I think you and I have talked about this in previous conversations, but we were not afraid of making mistakes because we know that you learn from mistakes. You collect a ton of data around mistakes. And so there are times where we look back and say, well, we probably should have tested this or we should have tested that in terms of strategy.
And the reality is sometimes you can't.
Well, and look, if we did that, we'd be like big cleaning, right? Mm-hmm. We'd be like big cleaning, sitting in meetings, looking at PowerPoints all day, saying, maybe in 2035 we'll go concentrate free, and that's going to be our battle cry. and everyone points to 2035. And then, by the way, when you get to 2034, there's an initiative to restructure the company, and that whole idea of concentrates is out the window. Then we'll do another 10 years of ready-to-use bottles. So we try to innovate every single day and know that there are going to be mistakes along the way. I mean, look, I was asked the other day by a venture capitalist who expressed interest in our company. They said, why did you feel like you needed to tell the story starting 7-8 months ago? Weren't you afraid that you would just be showing your playbook? And, my point was, look, if we're doing our jobs, if we make people fall in love with what we're doing,
if you execute,
yep, that's all that matters. And so, the end of it all, Brian, is I think, it's everything you've written about. It's everything I think you've observed. But for us, it's establishing those really authentic personal relationships. It's about building an innovative platform that really works. And, we should do a whole another segment sometime around the strategy around our structure, the structure of our company.
And the launch. Just breaking down the launch for people. Like I said, it was, there was one other company in the last year I've seen launch that had as equally as an interesting launch to you guys, which is a company called Outstanding Foods, and they launched something called Pigless Bacon Chips, and they did an amazing job integrating their social media with Facebook chat, with going live, and really, and now they just got into Whole Foods, and so it's been fun to kind of watch that brand grow as well. And so, yeah, I think we can definitely break that apart. I'm going to leave you with one last question, right? Because I think you've hit on it. Every day we make mistakes, we fix it. Fourth pillar, we optimize. Real simple. What's the biggest thing that surprised you so far that you've learned since you're actually seeing the data and seeing how customers are responding?
Yeah, I think two big surprises, and I mentioned one, which is the international traffic, and I'll say that was the first surprise. 120 visitors in the first 7 days, 30% of our web traffic every single day international, all word of mouth. By the way, that's a surprise, right? I would say the second is around user generated content. For me, there was always some skepticism around user generated content that it was manufactured, that you had to pay for it. And I always wondered when I saw those Casper unboxing experiences, how much per user was that and how many views. One thing that has really surprised me is, we talked about social proof of this company and building social proof strategy. And that's what we should really unpack at some point about exactly the steps we did. But I'd say the biggest surprise for me right now is the authentic, genuine, user-generated content that is instantly translated to sales. So from a data perspective, right, we didn't ask these people to become fans of the company. They just became fans because of what the company is. And I think the experience and the innovation of the product allows for sharing and a virality. I'll give you one really, really data-driven example. We had someone who told a passionate story about the fact that the town next to her was going through an initiative to get out of recycling because of cost. Okay? So think about the town says, we can't recycle anymore. We can't deal with this. We don't have a way of doing it. And she made this passionate plea using Truman's as an example of companies rethinking the supply chain. We had 30 sales within the very short period that she went live talking about that. 30 new customers impacted in I think
from
it was
from one. Yeah.
I think it was like 2 minutes. But that's the point, is that not having been part of a journey like this before, right? I mean, bigger companies, big ass fans, and back in the day, GE, right? Then you get to this point and you see that there's authenticity. Authenticity can then translate to something real and something we can measure. And so I think, Brian, that's the proof point that, look, we're disrupting home cleaning. Can you imagine that people are using words like love, innovate, passion, can't wait to go clean, things like that. So I think we've captured something here, and that's been a surprise.
I'm going to leave you with a tip, though, because I always like to do that. So
I love,
got the starter kit, and people can pick this up off the website. Maybe you'll give them a coupon code to go grab this. But one of the things that kind of surprised me when I got it was that you didn't give me anything to leave behind with other people that I want to share this story with.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to have a simple back and forth one page or maybe a card that I could have brought in to my kid's school, right? So that they can understand the story and the value of it. And with a little bit of the methodical part of showing the cost benefit to it as well. That was the only thing I would say. If I were looking at next step to do with the kids is to add something, because you are going to get that share.
Well, I agree, and here's how I would answer that. We know that's a deficit, but we are so focused. You can only do
so much. Also, I know.
But Brian, we are so focused on reduction of material that we actually have a beautiful. In fact, I think I sent it to you. We have a beautiful guide that walks through the company. We said it doesn't make sense to add anything extra that ends up in a landfill, anything extra that has to be recycled. If there's a digital way to do it,
no.
I know where you're going. I figured. I got it.
Inside the box, dude.
I love it.
Let's just break up the box.
Alex Reed, if you're watching, we're doing this. We're going to do that immediately.
Printing on two sides, no big
it's
deal.
Gonna be done. Brian, that's done in like a week. I love it.
So,
I'll take a picture of that and post it. That is brilliant. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, that alone would have been awesome. It's like, hey, I want to share with you a piece of the box I got.
Love it.
So,
love.
Jon, again, thank you so much. Not only for your sharing your time today, but
I love your work, and thank you for having me. It's amazing.
And thank you for this. Like I said, I care about this for my family, for my kids. I think it's important that people start making the changes. I've been using natural cleaners for probably 20 years, and not all of them were really that good. And so it was a struggle. It's hard to get that buy off when your wife doesn't think it just quite doesn't clean enough. This is doing it. This is making a big difference. And I hope, like I said, even from this video, if we can get one or two more real people to get engaged and to make the change, we've made a big difference.
Well, thank you. I mean, Brian, we've definitely had an unorthodox journey getting here, and we're so excited to continue.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And who's your baseball team this season?
Brian, Red Sox every year. Red Sox every single year, year in and year out. Look, National League, I'd pick the Phillies, but I am a. So
you're calling for a repeat.
I'm calling for Red Sox winning it all for the next 3 years. I think they actually need to solidify a little bit on the rotation. And I'm worried about the bullpen. I just saw Workman, his velocity is down, but we can certainly take this offline. I don't know how many folks are interested in my theory on where the Red Sox need to improve.
Well, I think the dog agrees. He's ready to go out. The sun just came out, so he's ready to go out. But yeah, we can definitely take this on another discussion. So, again, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. See ya.
See ya.